You're not that kind of nutritionist group that's going to have a go at us for a ginger nut.
Thank you.
It's probably easy if you put it up your jumper. Yeah, that's where I am. And there's someone. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it goes on there.
I couldn't hear over the crunch of the ginger nut. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm a size 12 to 14. There are girls that are watching me on screen and thinking, well, she's not a size 6, so that's okay. And I love the fact that I can be a bit of a role model.
There's been a change in the time that I've been doing that, from people wanting to be much slimmer, much thinner. They want to be fit now, and they want to be stronger.
We grew up with heroin chic and your Kate Mosses and your unattainable beauty standards and images in magazines.
But then that brings us then to the weight loss drugs that everyone is now talking about, obviously, they're everywhere.
And you see all these celebrities and you're like, well, they look fantastic and they look like this, and Oprah Winfrey slimmed down. This relationship with food and the way we consume it because of the way that we want to look.
It's not about kind of looking in the mirror and going, you look awesome. Good morning, you gorgeous bitch.
Brought to you by Sky Bet.
Hello, I'm Kelly Cates. Welcome to Not Just Football, part of the Overlap Network, brought to you by Sky Bet. With me today, as always, Hayley McQueen and Christian Lampard. And while football is what we have in common, we talk about all kinds of things. And as part of that, we are joined today by expert nutritionist, well-being consultant, Ruth Wood is here.
Yay! So exciting.
We're so excited. Yeah. And we've literally spent the whole of the kind of hour before this bending your ear about all kinds of things.
Talking at you.
Exactly. So what would you do in this circumstance? And basically just getting free advice, which is not really how this works.
Well, that's what I'm here for today.
Let's start by talking about you and how you ended up in nutrition, because this isn't, kind of some celebrity who's decided, do you know what you need to do? You need to grill some fish and steam some greens and get 8 hours sleep and drink 8 glasses of water a day. It's not that kind of nutrition, is it?
It's not. And I particularly benefited from seeing a nutritionist, which is why I retrained in it. So I travelled the world between the ages of probably 19 and 26 and started working in the travel industry, which was brilliant. But during that time of travel, I'd got IBS and nothing was fixing it. And I was getting kind of worse and worse. And someone suggested to me that I should see a nutritionist. And I'd never heard of that approach before. We're talking 96, 97. So I went to see this nutritionist. She did a functional stool test on me and found out what was going on. And she basically fixed me. It went within 3 or 4 months, I was better. And I'd had like 3 or 4 years of trying to find out what the cause was. I was already thinking of trying to change career, and wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I was interested in health and nutrition, and that was it. That kind of led me to retrain, and so I started training in 97 and qualified in 2000. And carried on working in the travel industry it was like a part-time kind of. So, and here I am, 25 years later.
And without sort of breaking any sort of confidentiality rules or anything like that, you've worked in some really interesting areas of nutrition as well, including with addiction. Yeah. So you can build up your business once you're in your 3rd year, you can get insured to start kind of starting building up your client base. And from travel, I was in sales and marketing sales predominantly for Qantas when I finished, and so I had no problem cold calling or ringing up companies going, I think you need a nutritionist, and in your company it would be really good for your business. People would be better, they'd work more efficiently, they'd feel healthier. And I met with a lot of closed doors, you can imagine, in 99. But there was a lot of people also very open to it, and so I started with clinics in Canary Wharf. I started in Credit Suisse Bank, had a gym, and other banks used it. And so I set up a little clinic there. That sort of kicked that off. And then BBC, TV Centre. So I worked in that, had a clinic in there, where else? Various places. And then a client of mine at the BBC said this would work really well at the Priory.
they don't have they had a dietitian, but they didn't have a nutritionist. And
what's the difference?
So dietitian is more trained to actually work with that illness. It's not so holistic. That's kind of the simpler way. There's more to it, but kind of the simpler way of looking at it. And so I had to go and have an interview. I had to do a presentation to the consultants, and to make sure I wasn't telling everyone to eat alfalfa every day. and
goji berries are going to cure everything.
You'll be fine. Yeah. So I had to do that, and they were really keen. It was great. So I started there in 2001. About 2001, I was there about 8 or 9 years, and you're obviously part of a team within that sort of treatment. I'm not going to. Nutrition doesn't fix, it's a preventative and it's part of a greater picture. But it was brilliant, it was interesting, and I'm from a family that's got a little bit of that, as most families have a bit of addiction within it. And so I was fascinated by it and became part of that team for quite a long time. And I could work with different parts of the hospital. So I'd work with the patients. I'd work with kitchen staff, help them with the menu and what sort of things, train some of the staff on nutrition, give them a bit of advice on working with the patients, and do groups, like some little seminars with the patients, which was quite of a nice kind of escape for them from the heaviness of all the counselling that goes on and the psychiatry.
So, but how would you describe what you do then for someone? Like, what are your expertise exactly? What do you really enjoy specialising in? And I'm sure you've evolved over the years as well in what you enjoy working with and trying to improve within a person. So how would you describe what you do?
So it's functional nutrition. So basically, my aim is to try and find a root cause of what, from a functional or nutrient level, if there's anything nutritionally that's impacting someone's health.
And this could be anything. So I could come to you with, it could be maybe headaches, or as you say, an IBS type related thing, stress. This is a whole host of things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily associate with nutrition in the first place.
Absolutely. So, for example, gut. So if someone comes to me with a gut issue, so bloating, constipation, diarrhea, any of that kind of stuff we kind of put up with on a day-to-day basis, but we really shouldn't have it to a certain normal gas is fine. But when it gets to classic nutritionist,
I tell you what, that's the first time we've had that on here.
Or not. Don't get me started.
Certainly that anyone's admitting to. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It was me.
There's the clip.
It's like normal daily conversation for me. And so I will then try and assess it through their diet. So we'll do questioning. Obviously, you do an assessment, go through their diet, symptoms, and then if you think there's something dietary that might be causing it, that there's evidence that has been linked to that kind of thing, then maybe work on that first. And then if there's no success with that, or if it's not having any impact, then I'll go, right, let's look at some functional testing. So, and if I think then we need a doctor, then I'll go to the doctor. I'll say, look, I'll write to your doctor and tell them what we've been trying to work from this level. And so, I think it's really important, especially in my job, because I get referrals from people in hospitals. So that you keep a very open mind. It's not, as I said before, nutrition doesn't fix anything. It's part of a bigger picture. And it might help with a lot of stuff, but you've got to be, a lot of people I see at the moment, I'm involved with the doctor as well. So, which is great, so it's a really holistic look at it.
That was going to be my question, actually, because if you've got something wrong with you, traditionally you would go to a doctor. Quite often they would want to medicate you, or the NHS is stretched, so it's it's like, oh, you've just got a bit of this. We don't really need to send you to anybody to have tests. We don't need to do that. It's going to cost us an awful lot of money. And sometimes you feel like you're palmed off a little bit. Do you feel that they're a bit more open to working with nutritionists or understanding a little bit more about nutrition as opposed to just sort of medicine?
I do, and I think they're also realising that we're trained properly, and we do. When it first came out, it was like, well, You know, they are telling people to eat alfalfa and stop eating meat and all that sort of thing. So I think there is I'm not scared to approach a doctor about nutrition. You know, I'm not going to get poo-pooed like I may have 20 years ago.
There we are again.
Back there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real there's becoming more of a connection there, and it's becoming much a greater part of that holistic picture of our health, that you can see a nutritionist and see a doctor, and vice versa. You know, they can work together. So, and that's very much how I kind of like to.
We're all dealing with different levels of stress. I mean, there's always stress no matter what generation or anyone's ever born in. It's all relative. But certainly now when you think of the new things that people deal with, whether it's social media and just the stress and the pace of life and everything else, I mean, you must see that in itself has a detrimental effect to all of us.
Yeah.
And that starts at such a young age is the problem as well, Ruth.
Yeah.
It's when to start taking care of yourself. I have a 6 and a 3-year-old. Do you start really young in terms of thinking about nutrition, your gut, all of the bits that you think come together to make you a healthier version of yourself?
I think so. I think you have to be careful that you're not creating fear of food that's nice to enjoy.
Yeah, no,
as well.
And I think that's it. That's where I'm at. Like, we just enjoy everything, and then I'm thinking, should I be more considerate though?
I think that's right. I think we're all sensible enough, or we should be sensible enough to go, it's okay for kids to be a kid and to enjoy sweets and to enjoy chocolate. But we know how much is not good. We can gauge our own children. But also, we know how much is a sensible amount. And it's about making them less fearful of healthy food as well, and encouraging them to eat an apple or a banana. And if they don't like it, try a different fruit, or not be, they don't like fruit just because they didn't want an apple. You know, most kids, if you start them kind of, I think, younger, and start them on kind of stronger flavour. You're going to think I'm really strange now, but one of the first solid foods we gave our son was mackerel, and and like tin mackerel, because I thought, well, if he's going to like that, that's it's good for you, and it's a strong flavour. And he did like it. I don't know if he still does. You'd have to tell me, he's 20. It's about that balance and not creating a fear of food that is perceived as less healthy and can be less healthy.
Brought to you by Sky Bet.
I'm a naturally more curvy girl. I've never been thin, always been athletic, probably carried a bit more weight sometimes than others. I've got endometriosis. I've had it really bad. Struggling to conceive for many, many years. And I was on air. It was at a time when Sky, we were wearing these fitted dresses and it didn't suit maybe my shape, or I didn't feel as comfortable. So I would maybe cover up in different ways, and my body language kind of showed that I was a bit more uncomfortable, but fine with it. I've had a couple of procedures for my endometriosis. my stomach used to swell up. And I remember going onto Twitter and social media and seeing, oh, well, she's obviously pregnant then. And I wasn't, and I was trying. And it's hurtful, and people forget that, and they're like, oh, I wish I was, that would be great. And I ended up sharing that I had endometriosis, and I'm quite a private person and didn't want to talk about medical stuff, but felt like I had to, because it was the reason why I was, looked like I was pregnant, because my stomach would be all swollen up. And I remember having one of those procedures done and coming back to work, and I ended up taking a little bit of extra time off because I was too self-conscious about being stood at this big screen, wearing a certain piece of clothing, looking like I was pregnant when I desperately wanted to be pregnant. So it's little things like that, isn't it? As I was like, oh God, I don't look how I did before. Okay, I'm not carrying 5 stone. I have a little baby and she's healthy and I'm healthy. But I do remember going back feeling really nervous because of the worry about how people would...
It's what you'd experienced before it as well.
And I'm quite comfortable with my weight. I've never felt like I had to lose weight because of my job, and I know a lot of people have, and I've been very lucky that I've grown up in a very healthy household. My obviously dad played football, so we were aware of health and nutrition and being strong, and I looked at different role models and people on screen, and I gravitate towards the more kind of curvy women and kind of focus on that. And the fact that most of the comments I have on social media, the positive ones, are actually from women. Oh, I love that, I'm a 14, and oh, you like I don't know, they could kind of relate to me a little bit more. It would be the men that would write the really awful things.
And the bloody audacity of them, because they write it with a sense that anybody gives a shit what they think.
I know, it's true.
That's just totally ridiculous. And there's such a power in not caring about any of it.
Yeah.
There really is such a
And that comes with age, doesn't it? Had a child 15 years before, maybe I would have thought very differently. I would have put myself on a diet. I would have done something very unhealthy. I would have been attempted to go on Ozempic or anything to get the weight off. But luckily, you get to a certain point in life where you just don't give a damn anymore. And you think, I've got what I wanted. I've got a child. I'm healthy. I've got a wonderful job. I love what I do. And I'm happy. So I don't care.
I loved being massive.
If they're not happy with me.
I was massive. I was 4 stone with both of my, although they were big babies, like 9 pounds and 8 pounds when they came out. They were big. And I put on about 4 stone, maybe a bit more. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved the bigness of it all, because then you've got the rest of my life to be good after.
Also,
I just loved it because it was the right
pregnancy,
reasons.
I think, was the most body confident I've ever been in my entire life. My first pregnancy, because I was like, and I ate really well as well, because it was all kind of. I just naturally wanted really. But the second time around, when I had the toddler and was pregnant, and it didn't feel quite so good. And
it's slightly different again, but that's it.
But yeah, first time round, I genuinely think that's the best I've ever felt about myself, even with big bump and everything.
Absolutely.
It's weird how the brain works.
Is that, you know, people thinking, well, how long ago did you have your baby? You know, it's like, really? You know,
she's 16.
He's 20. Yes, okay, I finally got there. You know, but
I've had friends that joke about it weirdly enough, whose children are really grown up, and they tell people it's baby weight, and that we have. So there's ways of hopefully trying to deal with it.
But there is something in that.
Stress about this.
If you have something like a pregnancy, and not everybody goes through pregnancies, but if you have a pregnancy or you have something in life that causes a big weight change, sometimes that does last for a long time, because as you said, the underlying reasons for it change, or it can change your hormones, it can change your biology, it can change everything in your body.
So I went into recovery at the same time as perimenopause, as you know, it was the whole thing. So I was like, but I knew that because I know about that stuff because it's my job. So I just went along handling it, you know, as best as I thought I could, and you know. And also, you should never try and help yourself. You know, I get advice from other people in the industry, and you know, but you get there, you know, and you, like we've been talking about, it's the mental. You've got to be psychologically happy.
Absolutely.
Before anything else will absolutely.
And stop being hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You know, just try and find a way of getting to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it.
And don't expect it overnight. It's the time, isn't it? If you're in that place, you're in a good place to start anything, I think.
And the best advice, I think I read somewhere, was it's not about body positivity, it's about body neutrality. Just going...
It is what it is.
It doesn't... It doesn't really matter that much. It's not about kind of looking in the mirror and going, you look awesome. Good morning, you gorgeous bitch.
Apparently, we interviewed, who was it the other day? It was Gareth Gates.
Oh, yeah.
Who apparently, when he met Simon Cowell has a mirror in his office that says, "You are the most beautiful thing in the world." Oh. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? That's so interesting, Gareth Gates, not me.
That is interesting.
That tracks, I'll be honest. That mirror lies.
We all need one of them. Brought to you by Sky Bet.
I'm very lucky. My little one, she's a great eater. She's got peppers and feta cheese and olives in her little snack thing today. But she'll also come home and she'll have a nice lolly and probably want to, you know, eat tons of chocolate and all of that. So it's about the balance. And she talks about healthy food and it makes you strong and grow. But I remember when she'd asked me about, and there's that great book, The Hungry Caterpillar, and he eats lots of stuff. And I don't use the word fat, really. I'm like, oh, it's healthy, or it's this, or whatever. Try and use other terms. And she said, oh, but mummy, if I just eat and eat and eat and eat, I'll just get fat. And I kind of wanted to say, oh, yeah, you will. But I didn't really know, actually, as a youngster, how to talk about that.
And I think that comes from how women talk to themselves as well, because you work a lot with women who might be wanting to lose weight. And how do you marry that kind of, you know, maybe a calorie deficit with staying strong and healthy? Because the body image plays into it a lot, and that's what I think we would all be worried about passing on to daughters particularly, but increasingly with boys as well.
I think this comes down to the education and making sure people have a greater understanding of why we need to eat and what we get from our food, and why it's important to have kind of structure rather than why we eat for energy, we eat for growth, we eat for muscle strength, not just we eat to survive. What do we actually need nutrients for? What do we need macronutrients, so your fat, carbs, protein? What do we need micronutrients for? Your minerals, your vitamins, and everything else that comes under that umbrella. So I think to educate people, and starting with our kids and saying, you need to have, we eat because we need it for energy predominantly and for growth. So, for example, with your daughter, we don't need to necessarily eat aside from those meals. We might need to pep it up every now and again if we've played a sport or if we've done something exertive. But apart from that, we just need to keep those 3 meals and not overeat. So different phases of our life will need different nutrients. So around hormone, around teenage, it's about growth, it's about balancing hormones and a lot of mood-related stuff and keeping things. The danger with teenagers, you want to eat loads of rubbish,
Because they're hungry.
Because they're hungry and they're growing. Like our son grew probably maybe 4 or 5 inches in lockdown because he wasn't doing anything. His body could rest, and he actually grew. He was 5'7" when we went into lockdown, and he was nearly 6 foot when he went back to school, and his teachers were like,
"Who's this child?
Have you been standing in compost?" He said, "One more teacher asked me if I've been standing." So, and he literally, because he had a chance to grow, and he was eating better food. He was at home, we were all eating, together and all that sort of thing. But it was, and then, for example, in pregnancy, you need more calories. You need, not loads more, that's a bit of a fallacy, but we need different calories. We need lots of energy, and we're growing, and the baby's growing. And then in moving on into, say, a stressful job, like in your 20s and 30s, work might ramp up, and you got a bit more kind of stressful job, and you might work later, for example, if you work later into the evening, or if you've got a job that just works late into the evening. Not eating too many calories late into the night, because although you're working, you can feed yourself. You're not playing necessarily a team sport, or you're not playing an exertive game of, paddle or something like that. So you shouldn't eat that much, and it can also prevent you from sleeping better. If you're bringing in all that energy just for whether it's discomfort or whatever. So. And then again, coming on into perimenopause and menopause, because the shift in hormones there, you're going to have, it affects your blood sugar levels, and it affects how everything kind of functions. That's why we get the midriff weight in middle life, because our whole body's changing with how we use our macronutrients, and our hormones have changed. So, there's much more to that. But yeah, we need to look at, right, do I need as many carbs? And also, we're not necessarily playing team sports anymore, or as much, or we're not as exertive as you get older. We still are,
and your body doesn't create muscle as easily, so you're kind of...
That's right.
Yeah, having to help it do that as well.
Yeah. And so all the nutrients, your nutrients change, the shift changes to needing different things with each phase of life.
Brought to you by Sky Bet.
I'd love to say we could all just sit here and talk about the fact that we eat to help our gut and to keep us healthy and to help our brain, but the reality of it is a lot of us eat or don't eat to look a certain way. We've all grown up in the world of television where there's a lot more scrutiny on us. We're all different shapes and sizes. I've struggled with weight gain and loss throughout my years. I've never really dieted. I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm a size 12 to 14. There are girls that are watching me on screen and thinking, well, she's not a size 6, so that's okay. And I love the fact that I can be a bit of a role model. I love that I've got colleagues who are a size 6 to 8, and they can appeal to some of the younger girls at home as well. And I thought that we were over the whole we grew up with heroin chic and your Kate Mosses and your unattainable beauty standards and images in magazines, and thought we were in a much healthier place. We've seen all these much curvier, wonderful women in the media and on screen. But the reality is we actually aren't, and we still do all care about gaining and losing weight. And it's still there, it's instilled in us, and unfortunately it's still there in the teenage girls and the 20-year-olds. What about this relationship with food and the way we consume it because of the way that we want to look?
I mean, the pressure, I deal with a lot of people in the media and performers, and I've got to say there's been a change in the time that I've been doing that, from people wanting to be much slimmer, much thinner. They want to be fit now, and they want to be stronger, and they're more concerned about their holistic health. I get performers coming to me who want to know that their voice is clear, and who want to just look stronger and create a more positive image rather than an unachievable, skinny image that I was dealing with sort of in the early 2000s. It's definitely changed, that approach to it. But there is that pressure with social media, and that unattainable kind of look is still very much there. But I have definitely seen a shift in people, women particularly, but also men, going, you know, I just want to look fit, but I want to know that my body's working properly. So they might come to me to see, I'm not sleeping well. All the stuff we've talked about, digestion, immunity, you know, my hormones, my skin, you know, they just want to be their best, not what people want them to be. And I think that's so important. It makes our job so much kind of less difficult, because they're wanting to achieve something that's attainable, rather than having to go through that whole psychological part of, that's not my job. They need to see counsellors or doctors, because there may be something underlying that I can't deal with that, you know. I can support it, but I can't deal with the actual main issue.
Yeah, I read an article about that kind of early 2000s, particularly culture, about that absolute obsession with size zero, and about how all the social pressures were basically for women to sort of lead themselves into disappearing. That was the point, to take up less space, and you were effectively becoming nothing. That was the point of it. That was the point of being size zero. When it was, I mean, obviously that wasn't the equivalent here, but that was very much the big US obsession. And in the midst of all of that, I mean, we can only exist in the, I'm going to sound like Kamala Harris here, we exist in the culture that we've grown up in. But so people can't, women particularly, and I think we can, definitely it's an issue for men as well, but we can only really speak to women and the women that we know. But there definitely is that pressure. You can't get rid of it. You have to fight against it if you want to think differently about it. And for sportswomen in particular, because their body, in order to function at the very peak, has to be strong and fit, but not necessarily the shape and the fact that women's shapes come in and out of fashion is ludicrous anyway, but it's maybe not necessarily a fashionable shape to be.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, so for me, I use as an example with, if I don't treat elite sports people, I'm not a specialist sports nutritionist, but I have worked with people who do competitive sport, like just personal. But I always use Serena Williams as a really classic, inspirational kind of person who, you know, she's not your obvious Steffi Graf or Tracy Austin, you know, from, I'm going to really show my age, you know, Maria Sharapova, thank you. You know, but boy, she silenced people, you know, and
is beautiful.
And is beautiful and is strong and has great messages about, if you don't try it, you know, try, what is it? If you don't try, it's fail. If you don't try, or is trying is failing, not trying is failing. Yeah. So, you know, she's just brilliant, and she's the sort of person people should be looking at, girls should be looking at. You know, as well as other people. Denise Lewis, you know, they're just stunningly fit looking. You know, apart from being beautiful. That aside, she's just a really fit-looking lady, you know. And you look at them and you go, well, that's good.
Yeah, we're not going to aspire to being Denise Lewis. I'll be honest. I think that's beyond the realms of possibility. Loved it, or Serena Williams. It's not going to happen.
I work with Dame Kelly Holmes quite a bit, and and she'll hate me saying it, although she talks about it. She's in her 50s now. She looks like she's 25 in the flesh. She's fantastic. To me, fitter looking now than she's ever looked, and she absolutely puts it down to nutrition and health and the right kind of exercise, which is very important. The weight sort of side of things and all of that. And I look at that, and that's beautiful to me. I love that strong thing. This sort of, you talk about that heroin chic thing. That was never. I remember that whole phase, and friends trying to do it before you go on holiday and making yourself ill.
Yeah. And yet there are
absolutely. Well, Towie were totally responsible for that.
Yeah. Women who are naturally incredibly slim.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, completely.
It's about trying to find the strength there and the fitness levels in.
Absolutely. It's what makes you strong and healthy is the key. But then that brings us then to the weight loss drugs that everyone is now talking about, obviously, they're everywhere. And at this stage, I still do believe it's such early stages. And actually, just this morning, there was a politician on the news, and he had admitted to using it and lost a lot of weight and feels so much better for it. And I do think there's a lot of secrecy around it. A lot of people are doing it, don't want to say that they're doing it. I understand, whatever.
There's a lot of people who say, I tried it, but it didn't really work for me. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, so there's just lots of there are whispers about it. So none of us really quite know what's going on. But I think it's a very interesting time and still very early days. Yeah. So really it is a trial period still, isn't it?
They've got 8 years of evidence. They've got 8 years of study on it. So it's they're very well studied. But the problem with that is because it's a recent prescription. But those 8 years of study, but we still don't know what the effects of it afterwards are. So fully. So we know that it works for what it mimics the hormones that tell us we're full, and slows down stomach emptying. So you feel fuller, and so you've got that perception that you're full. So you eat less, so you lose weight, So Wegovy and Ozempic predominantly do that. They work with mimicking GLP. And then you've got, I always forget the name of it, Mounjaro, which has 2, so it's stronger for weight loss. So that works with GLP and GIP. It's a really long name, and I'm not going to try and say it. So that works with blood sugar as well. So it works on that whole mimic of you're full, your stomach's not emptying as quickly, so you're going to stay fuller for longer, so you're not so hungry, so you eat less, so you lose weight. When you're taking that, that's fine. But when it stops, so I've got 2 or 3 people I'm trying to help at the moment who want to come off it, and they're terrified that they're going to go back to, because that hormone. So what we've got to do with these weight loss, for me, is you've still not got to why were they overeating? Why were they? And some people weren't that overweight. They've just managed to get hold of it.
That's the worry thing, because I think that it was an anti-diabetic drug, wasn't it, or a drug for people with
supporting diabetes,
and then it's then been co-opted as a weight loss drug. Yeah. But under medical supervision. But it feels like there isn't much medical supervision of it.
Well, you can. If you get it through my understanding is if you get it through the NHS or through you have to meet a certain criteria to get it, because it costs. So but the problem is you can buy it, and so if you've been diagnosed pre-diabetic or diabetic, then you can fair enough, you can get it privately. But there are people just buying it who don't necessarily need it. This is the problem. It's putting in Australia, you just can't get it because they can't. There's no supply.
The problem is it's everywhere, and you see all these celebrities and you're like, but they look fantastic and they look like this, and Oprah Winfrey slimmed down. I read one the other day, and it was about a woman saying how incredible it was for her because at 43 it made her fertility better, and she's pregnant, and it was the Daily Mail.
That's dangerous.
But I was thinking,
it's like a wonder drug suddenly. There's a drop in heart attacks and everything.
There's a drop in this, there's a drop in that. It's been great for my health. I've managed to conceive.
The danger with that is with Oprah, for example, or anyone of that like level of celebrity. They have chefs, they have personal trainers.
That's
they
exactly
have,
it.
You know, so it's like that's not achievable for people. Again, we're back to that. You know, it's the attainability of getting to that point, and also knowing that when you come off that, or what you're going to do when you stop that, because if your doctor wants to stop it because they think you've retained your weight, or you've decided you don't want to pay for it anymore because you can't afford it or just don't want to do it anymore, what's your behaviour? What's your psyche around food now like? Has it changed? Or because there's a lot of people doing the weight loss drugs and eating rubbish food on it because they're full, so they go, well, I'm just going to eat what I want because I'm full anyway, so it doesn't, you know, you've not achieved anything, personally speaking, from a nutritional standpoint, because you're going to stop that, but you've not retrained how you actually look at food and how you eat.
Brought to you by Sky Bet.
Oh, we're going to have to stop, even though none of us want to. We're all sitting here quite happily sitting. But we've run out of coffee as well.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been so fascinating. I get the sense we've really, honestly, only really scratched the surface because there's so much that is your thing that you keep very private within, you know, your room with someone. So it's like, it's just been so interesting delving in a little bit.
And it's not, you know, useless pieces of kind of trending information. It's proper, balanced, structured, functional nutrition. It's great.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And now we'll have a cola bottle ginger biscuits.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought to you by Sky Bet.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if any of the topics today have affected you, well, we've added a little bit more information with some advice and some links below.